continue to grow and become a better program. And I think they're on the right track to do that. But Abe Gordon, I want to get into our week three takeaways. And I'm going to start here because this thing is wide open. Wide open. When I look at college football the last couple of years, you've seen pretty consistently who the best teams are going to be. Georgia's been widely the best team for the last 2 years. Before that, you have Alabama, and then before that, it was LSU, who was so widely better, and then before that, it was Clemson and Alabama and everybody else. It's pretty clear who the best teams were going to be, and of course, you have your Ohio States and your Michigans and everybody else. But this year, we're looking at a season where, like I said earlier, we're 25% of the way through the college football season. Oklahoma and Texas are both off the hot starts. Notre Dame and Ohio State, they're playing next week. They're on a collision course for this weekend, and that's going to be an exciting game, of course. And I've already made this. That's our college football game time game of the week coming up this weekend when we discuss it on Saturday at college football game time. They're on a collision course right now, and I think the winner of that game is going to really have a front seat towards the college football playoff. But also up there, you have Michigan and Penn State, two teams who I think are very good and could, in any other year, be in the college football playoff discussion, and they're going to be right there as the season continues to unfold. Don't forget Rutgers, who's off to a 3-0 start. They've only allowed 30 points total this season, so I don't think that they're going to be a contender, and so I don't want to necessarily have them up in that same breath, but I do want to give them that shout-out. The Scarlet Knights, 3-0, and they're looking pretty good. But you go out west, you have the Pac-12, which is causing all kinds of chaos, and I know we have differing opinions necessarily on the Pac-12 about whether or not they can get somebody into the dance.
Yeah.
But look, it's a wild place, and a lot of wild things can happen. And then you come down to the SEC. Ooh, I don't know if anybody wants to win it outside of maybe Georgia, who is sleepwalking again.
Yeah.
Florida has a loss. Tennessee has a loss. South Carolina has 2 losses. Alabama has a loss. Texas A&M, LSU. Are we looking at a season where Ole Miss could be representing the SEC in the title game? I don't know. I don't think so necessarily. I still think it's Alabama, but they've got a loss here already. So I don't know who's going to win the SEC. It's wide open, and there are a lot of seats at the table right now. But it's a game of musical chairs that we will dwindle down to just 4, and that's going to be just such an exciting season.
Yeah. If the teams that you and I penciling in already, if they don't make their runs to the playoff and get in there, and for me, those teams, just thinking off the top of my head, you're looking at Texas, Florida State, Georgia, and Michigan, or Ohio State, or Penn State over. I mean, if those teams aren't making the runs that we expect them to make, you're looking at the first time in college football playoff history that a 2-loss is getting in. And that's what you're looking at. There's going to be a 2-loss team getting in there, and that's where my thoughts on the Pac-12 start to slide back in, because I feel like they're just going to beat up on each other enough to where they're all going to take a pair of losses. But this might be the first year that a 2-loss gets in. It is wide open, and the teams that we've penciled in, I mean, again, Texas, Florida State, Georgia, and the winner of the Big Ten. If that doesn't play itself out, if Florida State goes to Clemson, let's say, and doesn't handle business, I mean, you're looking at a 2-loss team getting in somewhere. So that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. The biggest takeaway for me, and maybe it's just like recency bias, we're now 3 weeks in to the college football season, and I have no Heisman frontrunner. I've got no one. I mean, guys are putting up numbers, and I've mentioned it before. You're going to have to be throwing 350, 400, 450 yards a week like Michael Penix is doing, or 3, 4, 5 touchdowns a week like Sam Hartman is doing. And look, I know there's certain games that guys will take that step to become the Heisman frontrunner, but the fact that we don't have one now is really interesting to me. I could be wrong. I don't remember there being a season where there wasn't a clear guy, and maybe that guy fell off or didn't. But last year, for instance, Hendon Hooker came around pretty quickly, and it felt like he was the guy until he got hurt. He was the guy. I mean, not week 1. It was, for whatever reason, Anthony Richardson was the Heisman winner after week 1 a year ago with the win over Utah. But it felt like Hendon Hooker stepped to the front of that class pretty quickly a year ago. And you had the other guys who were floating around, but even returning Heisman Caleb Williams isn't like he's not separated from the group. I mean, Sam Hartman, Quinn Ewers, Michael Penix, but no one has separated themselves. I find that very, very interesting. Again, maybe it's recency bias, but I don't feel like in recent years I've been at a point where we're entering, you said we're 25% of the way through this thing, and I don't really have anyone that's taken any steps to disassociate themselves from the field.
Well, Abe, we're getting into the conference schedule this week. We're starting to really see those games start heating up. I just pulled up the schedule. And I'm going to read this to you here in just a second. I'm really excited about it.
It's the best week we've had in a number of years, in my opinion.
This is going to be one of the most exciting weeks. And look, I think this is where we're going to start seeing the wheat separate from the chaff. And this is really what's going to happen with these upcoming weeks. And I'm just looking at it. Like, look, you've got Michigan and Rutgers. I just talked about Rutgers is 3-0 right now. Florida State travels to Clemson. You've got Ohio State and Notre Dame, Penn State and Iowa, which is going to be just a sneaky, very good game. 7:30 on CBS, that one. Oregon and Colorado, we talked about those two. Utah and UCLA, LSU and Arkansas, Bama and Ole Miss, Oregon State and Washington State.
Yeah.
Whew. Get ready to roll, man. It's going to be fun.
It's not a make or break week necessarily. Well, I mean, it is, but
every week's make or break. That's why we love college football.
To me, this is a front runner schedule. And what I mean when I say that is you find out who the front runners are in a number of conferences through all of these various games. Look, there's 3 different games involving the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. And look, they may all 3 win, but I think based on what we see, I'll know who my front runner is. If Ohio State wins, if Michigan wins, if Penn State wins, based on how they look and all that stuff, I'll know who my front runner is in the Big Ten. All right,
and I think all 3 of these teams face unique challenges in this upcoming week, and we're going to learn a lot about these guys. So
you go to the ACC though, Florida State, Clemson. I'll know who my front runner is. You mentioned a multitude of different SEC West battles. Now, not in the SEC East, but in the SEC West. After this week, I'll know who my front runner is, and the same thing out west in the Pac-12. I know you didn't mention USC in that group, but you mentioned Oregon, Colorado, you mentioned Washington, UCLA.
USC's got Arizona State. That's still going to be a good game.
But I probably won't learn a ton there. But my point is there's a lot of games where I know what my front runner is. And then finally, in tying into that to the Big Ten, I'll know if Notre Dame's important to pay attention to or not. Because if they lose this game, I don't know if they can get in without a lot of help. If they win this game.
No, they have to win this game.
Yeah. So this is like a front runner schedule for me where I will learn a lot about who's real contender this week.